Welcome back, dear listener. Come in, settle down. The world outside can wait a little while longer. This is your space, now quiet, warm, filled with stars and science, curiosity and calm. You've walked through days of noise and movement. Now, let it all soften. Let your thoughts lie down beside you, like sleepy animals curling up for the night. Breathe gently. You're safe here. Tonight, we will journey through a story. Just beyond the hush of your breath, where stillness wraps around your bones and sleep brushes its fingers along your thoughts. A garden is growing, not a garden with soil and sky, but one deep inside you, beneath your skin, behind your eyes, curled in the marrow of your bones. You carry it with you always, this quiet miracle. It blooms in silence, and it is alive. Imagine walking through it now. The path beneath your feet is soft, warm, pulsing with energy. The air glows with a faint golden light. Around you, countless living cells sway gently like grasses in a breeze. Each one is a tiny world, a small chamber of purpose and possibility. Some are building, some are resting, some are healing, but none are still. There is no true silence, here only a living hum, like the sound of bees beneath sunlight. This is your cellular garden, and each plant, each leaf, each blossom is a cell, microscopic, yes, but rich with life. In your mind's eye, picture them, not as cold biology, but as soft, glowing lanterns, each one lit from within, each one following a secret set of instructions tucked safely inside. That instruction is your DNA, your blueprint, your map. But here, in the garden, the map is not just stored. Here is where the blueprint becomes form. Inside each cell, invisible workers bustle and build. They're not people, of course, but tiny molecular machines, proteins and enzymes, ribosomes and messengers. They move with purpose, guided by the instructions they read in your genes. Their hands are made of chemistry, their eyes of precision. They fold, weave, and carry. They cut and stitch. They never sleep. You could think of them as builders, or perhaps as gardeners themselves, tending the form of you from the inside out, every second. These builders complete countless tasks. One makes insulin to regulate sugar. Another repairs a nick in your DNA. A third constructs a new protein to replace one lost. They work on breath, on thought, on digestion, on healing. And they do it all without question, because the blueprinter DNA tells them exactly what to do. But this isn't a rigid system. It's flexible, fluid. It listens. When you grow cold, your cells respond. When you're injured, they begin repair. When you dream, they clean, sort, and restore. Like gardeners adjusting to rain and wind, your cells adjust to what you need, and they do it with grace, without fanfare, without rest, without ever being noticed. Pause here, take a breath, and feel this quiet work continuing beneath your skin. With each inhale, oxygen slips into your bloodstream and tells cells it is time to burn energy. With each exhale, waste is released. And in this exchange, your cells continue their rhythm, taking in what they need, releasing what they don't, always dancing to the internal music of life. You are made of around 37 trillion of these cells. That number is almost too large to imagine. Each one a tiny universe, each one a single note in the song of your body. Together, they build your tissues, your organs, your thoughts, your memories. They are you. And yet, they act with a kind of unity that goes beyond you, as though life itself has composed this garden to bloom just so. And every few days, some cells are replaced. Your skin renews itself. Your gut builds new lining. Even your blood is replenished. The garden refreshes itself gently, continuously. Not all cells regenerate, of course. Some, like those in your brain, stay with you for a lifetime. Others, like skin and hair, come and go. But all follow the same blueprint. All trust the same plan. But how do these cells know what to become? That question leads us deeper into the garden. Imagine a tiny stem cell, a special kind of cell that hasn't decided what it will become. It waits quietly, full of potential. And then, when the time is right, it listens to the signals around it. A whisper from a neighboring cell, a nudge from a protein, a chemical message like a breeze through branches. And just like that, the cell chooses a path. It becomes a muscle, or a nerve, or a part of your beating heart. This decision, what scientists call differentiation, is like choosing a role in a grand performance. Once a cell knows its part, it practices endlessly. It remembers its lines. It never forgets. And so, the garden grows in harmony. In your bones, stem cells become blood. In your brain, they become neurons that carry electric thought. In your lungs, they become the soft tissues that exchange air. Every space in your body, notebook once used by bacteria to remember their enemies. It is from this memory that we humans have borrowed a tool to reshape destiny. You imagine a garden again. They no longer simply water and prune. They now edit, revise, rewrite the instructions that govern how every leaf grows, how every petal curls, how every root stretches into the dark soil. The CRISPR system, combined with an enzyme called Cas9, allows scientists to make changes with astonishing precision. It is like fixing a typo in the great manuscript of life, or replacing a broken note in the melody of the body. Yet, with every snip of these scissors, a question arises. What will this change become? Will it heal, or will it hurt? Will it bring light or shadow? You let these thoughts drift softly through your mind. Picture a child with a genetic illness, single wrong letter in their DNA, causing their body to falter, to weaken. With CRISPR, there is the possibility of correcting that single letter before the child is even born. A gentle edit made in the earliest moments of life. A whisper before the first cry. But not all edits are so simple. Some genes interact with others in complex ways, like threads in a tapestry that cannot be pulled without unraveling the whole. The beauty of the scissors lies in their sharpness, but their danger lies in how little we still know. An edit meant to help could ripple through the body in ways we do not yet understand. The dance between cure and risk is delicate. Like balancing on the thinnest edge of a blade, you begin to drift gently now, imagining scientists standing at glowing microscopes, watching cells divide, guiding tiny changes with hands, both careful and hopeful. In the heart of these labs, filled with the hum of machines and the hush of concentration, CRISPR becomes a bridge between illness and health, between fate and choice. You think about the power of choice. Not all changes are about healing. Dream of enhancements, stronger bones, sharper minds, resistance to disease, even longer life. The scissors could be used not just to correct, but to improve. This is where the line between therapy and design begins to blur. And as you lie still, you feel the gentle weight of that question settle on your chest like a warm blanket. Who decides what to change? Imagine parents sitting with scientists, peering at a chart of possibilities. What eye color? What height? What risk of disease? What potential? It feels like a story from the future, and yet it is already here, just beginning. CRISPR has brought us to the edge of this possibility, not just to heal life, but to shape it. And with that comes responsibility. Because once a change is made in an embryo, it is not just for that one child. It may echo forward into future generations. This is what makes germline editing so powerful and so profound. Germline means the change is made in cells that give rise to sperm or X instructions passed down like heirlooms, generation to generation. Like changing the soil in which all future gardens will grow. You feel your breath slow as your mind drifts deeper. There is awe here, and there is caution. CRISPR is still young, still learning to walk the path it has opened. There are mistakes in early experiments. Sometimes the scissors cut in the wrong place. Sometimes the cell does not repair the break as expected. Sometimes the ripple spreads further than imagined. But also, there are miracles. There are children who may live because of this tool. There are diseases that may one day fade into the past, like forgotten plagues. There is a promise whispered by the scissors, promise that we may one day edit out suffering itself. Yet you sense that this power is not ours alone. It belongs to the shared story of all life. Every edit is a line written in that story, a sentence added to the great unfolding poem of the universe. It asks not just what we can do, but what we should do. And in the quiet, your heart answers not with certainty, but with care. CRISPR is not the first tool that changed everything, and it will not be the last. Fire, the wheel, the printing press, electricity, the computer reshaped the human story. Now comes the edit. The gentlest of tools, the sharpest of choices. You picture a tiny embryo, no larger than a grain of sand, resting in a dish of warm fluid. It has just been touched by the scissors, its code slightly altered, its path nudged in a new direction. Around it, the scientists wait silent, reverent, aware that they have just stepped across a threshold into a new kind of future. And as you drift, so do they, into questions, into hopes, into responsibility. You are part of this story, too. You, a being shaped by DNA, shaped by time, shaped by the choices of those who came before you. The scissors may never touch your own code, but their presence is already shaping your world. Medicine, ethics, dreams, they all shift gently under the weight of this small, sharp tool. Let yourself rest now in the soft glow of understanding. The scissors exist not to sever, but to heal, to sculpt, to guide. They are a whisper from the ancient world of microbes, now placed gently in our hands. What will we do with them? That question hovers as you drift deeper into sleep, held in the quiet hum of possibility. The scissors wait, patient and precise. And somewhere, beneath the stars, the story of life continues to be rewritten one letter at a time. Asterisk, asterisk, long ago. Before you were born, before even the word gene was spoken in a classroom or whispered in a laboratory, something small and quiet was unfolding in the lives of bacteria. Yes, bacteria, the tiny, invisible builders of the microbial world, older than trees, older than bones, older even than the air you breathe. These ancient beings had a secret. They lived in a world full of dangerous viruses called phages, would pierce their defenses and spill their own code into them, hijacking their tiny lives. But nature, ever resourceful, gave bacteria a way to remember, a way to defend. They carved pieces of the viral DNA and tucked them away into their own genome, like a photo album of enemies, like names etched into stone. These stored fragments became their defense system. If the same virus returned, the bacteria would recognize it by the signature hidden in their archive. And with a careful snip of a protein molecular blade, they would destroy the invader before harm could be done. That ancient record-keeping system, deep inside a single-cell organism, is now known as CRISPR. You may have heard the name before, sharp and mechanical sounding, like a whisper caught in a scalpel's edge. But inside that name is a story, soft as thread, spun over eons of survival, patience, and memory. CRISPR stands for clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats, but those words don't matter much here. What matters is the image. A repeating rhythm in the DNA, like footsteps down a hallway, broken now and then by fragments of invader. The scissors that walk this hallway are special to proteins like Cas9, a precise and powerful pair of hands capable of cutting DNA exactly where it needs to be cut. Not to destroy, to remember, to protect. And now, as the story passes from bacteria to you, something miraculous begins. Imagine yourself standing in a vast library. This library is your genome. The books are long, some stretching for millions of letters. Each one holds instructions for your body, your breath, your being. But sometimes, even the best books have typos. A single letter out of place can change the meaning of an entire sentence, can change a life. For decades, scientists dreamed of editing these books. They tried, patiently and clumsily, to cross things out, to insert new lines. But their pens were blunt, their erasers imprecise. The changes they made were messy, uncertain, and often dangerous. Imagine trying to correct a word in a novel with a paintbrush dipped in ink. You might fix the word, but you might also ruin the page. Then, one quiet day in the early 2000s, scientists stumbled upon the bacterial secret. They realized that CRISPR wasn't just a clever immune trick, it was a tool, a system that could be borrowed, refined, and repurposed. Nature had done what human minds had long failed to do. It had built an editing system that was elegant, precise, and because to change DNA is to touch the blueprint of life. And when you touch the blueprint, you touch the future. Not just for one person, but for their children and their children's children. You hold the pen that writes generations. You may feel the gravity of that even as you breathe slowly in the dark. The same tool that can correct a deadly gene might also be tempted to enhance, to upgrade, to design. We stand at the edge of two possibilities, healing and shaping, and the line between them is soft as silk, easily crossed, easily blurred. Imagine again the painter with a brush. What begins as a restoration of beauty, a gentle correction, might slowly become something else. What if one day we begin painting new colors never meant to be there? What if the canvas is no longer just mended, but remade? That is the moment we find ourselves in now. CRISPR has moved from petri dishes to headlines. It lives in laboratories, yes, but also in conversations, classrooms, laws, and dreams. It is no longer just a scientific tool. It is a cultural one. And like all powerful tools, it reflects us, our hopes, our fears, our choices. Some scientists hold the scissors with reverence, careful and slow, focused on healing. Others see a future of possibilities, world where height, intelligence, even personality could be shaped before birth. Some fear this path leads to inequality, to echoes of eugenics, 2 new definitions of what it means to be normal. But tonight, you don't need to decide where the path ends, only to understand where it begins. It begins in the quiet, in the study of the smallest things. It begins in the humility of learning from bacteria. It begins in wonder, and it begins in you. Because you are not separate from this story. You are made from DNA, yes, but you are also made from curiosity, from the ancient pull to understand, to shape, to heal. And now, in your lifetime, humanity holds a brush unlike any before. Not to erase, not to dominate, but perhaps to mend. You may wonder what it feels like to hold CRISPR in your hand, to sit in a lab and guide the scissors toward a single gene, knowing what could change. It does not feel like power. It feels like responsibility, like silence before a word is spoken, like stepping into the blueprint of a life not yet lived. Even now, researchers proceed with care. Trials are slow. Questions are many. Not all answers are known. But each discovery adds a note to the melody of progressa, soft unfolding of promise, and still. The scissors wait, gentle, patient, quiet. Let yourself feel the warmth of this moment, this beginning. The dawn of CRISPR is not just a breakthrough in science. It is a turning point in our shared story. A whisper in the genome that we can hear. And now, for the first time, gently reply as you close your eyes. The question lingers not just of what we can do, but what we should. It is not a question to rush. It's a question to carry. Sleep now, with that question resting beside you, like a folded note on your pillow. The light of CRISPR grows brighter on the horizon. But for now, there is only calm and in the distance. The next part of the story begins to stir the part where healing meets imagination. Asterisk, asterisk. Imagine this, a quiet morning after a long storm. The sky, once dark and full of ache, begins to lighten with soft gold. The earth is wet, but the air is clear. And somewhere inside your body, something similar begins to happen, because inside you, within every cell, every breath, every beat, there are stories written not just of who you are, but of what has hurt you. Your body carries maps of old injuries, coded instructions that sometimes misfire. A gene may go quiet when it should sing, or it may shout too loudly, disturbing the balance. These are the stories of disease tales that whisper across your blood, your bones, your mind. Now imagine you have been given a brush so small, so precise, it can paint inside the lines of those stories. Code, not to erase, but to gently correct. That brush is CRISPR. This quiet miracle begins with something ancient, bacteria, protecting themselves from invaders. From this ancient defense system, scientists have shaped a tool that can now read and rewrite the very language of life. It does not bludgeon or burn. It doesn't tear. It glides in like a whisper and, with guidance, makes a single cut, a careful snip. Then, the body's own magic takes over. You can think of your DNA as a long, coiled ribbon, full of sentences and instructions. Sometimes, a single letter is wrong. In certain diseases, like sickle cell anemia or cystic fibrosis, one misplaced letter causes lifelong suffering. But now, with CRISPR, that one letter can be corrected, like a teacher fixing a spelling mistake in a poem. Breathe in for a moment. Imagine what that means. A child, once destined for pain, might grow strong. A parent who feared passing down a cruel legacy might instead pass down peace. A family holding hands in a waiting room might one day find their fears softened by science. This is not fantasy. It is happening now in laboratories around the world. CRISPR is already being tested in blood diseases, eye disorders, even some cancers. Scientists gather cells like gentle gardeners, tending to them in warm, nutrient-rich beds. They send in the scissors CRISPR molecules designed to find only the broken place. Then they wait, slowly, patiently. The cells begin to heal themselves. And then they are returned to the body, bearing their quiet gift. You may wonder, how does the body know what to do? How does it fix itself after the scissors cut? Think of your DNA like a scroll wrapped in silk. If CRISPR gently snips the silk, your body sends repair tools, enzymes that read the torn edges and decide what to fill in. If scientists provide a small patch, a correct piece of code, the body may use it like a seamstress mending with the perfect thread. It's not always perfect. Sometimes the repair is clumsy. Sometimes the scissors slip. But with each experiment, the precision improves. With each test, the dream of healing becomes a little clearer, and the dream is vast. Picture the diseases that have weighed on humanity for centuries: Huntington's, Tay-Sachs, muscular dystrophy. Each one is rooted in the instructions of our cells. Each one might one day be softened or even erased by CRISPR. But healing is not only about genes. It is also about hope. About the feeling you carry when a doctor says, "There's something we can try." CRISPR is changing the very language of what doctors can try. It moves from treating symptoms to treating causes, from long-term struggle to gentle correction. It is the difference between patching a roof after every storm and rebuilding the structure so it no longer leaks. And yet, even as we imagine these beautiful possibilities, the world asks us to go slowly. Not every disease is simple. Not every fix is safe. The body is a symphony, and when you tune one instrument, you must listen for changes in the whole. A gene that causes disease might also provide protection. A correction in one person might cause complications in another. So researchers step softly. They conduct trials. They build better models. They ask questions again and again. Did the scissors cut only where they were told? did the cells behave afterward? Were there echoes, seen ripples in the body's quiet music? Sometimes, to heal means waiting. Sometimes, it means saying, not yet. And in this way, CRISPR becomes more than a tool. It becomes a discipline of care, a reminder that healing is not only about speed, but about wisdom. You might wonder about those whose healing cannot wait. Children born with fatal genetic conditions. Adults facing diagnoses that once had no answer. For some of them, CRISPR offers a kind of grace. In 2020, a woman named Victoria Gray became one of the first patients to receive CRISPR therapy for sickle cell disease. Her blood, once shaped like sharp crescents that caused pain and exhaustion, began to transform. Her symptoms eased. Her energy returned. It was not magic. It was science, guided by empathy and risk. And her courage opened the door for others. These early patients are not just subjects. They are pioneers. They hold in their bodies the early songs of a new kind of medicine. And you, listening now, are part of their story. Because healing is never only individual. It is shared. When one person is cured, others are comforted. When one step is taken, a path appears for those behind. So lie back now and let yourself feel the quiet unfolding of this promise. Imagine diseases like shadows drawn on a window. CRISPR is a gentle light. Not harsh, not overwhelming, just enough to change the shape of the shadow. Just enough to offer peace. But even the gentlest light must be held with care. That care is what scientists now carry in their hands. They work in silence, in clean white rooms, guided by data and instinct and doubt. Their tools are precise, but their hearts are cautious. Because they know to heal one part of the body is to touch the whole. To change one life is to echo through generations. They ask not just what they can fix, but what fixing means. What if you remove a gene that causes blindness? Will you see better or just differently? What if you prevent a disorder? Will you still be the same you or someone new? These are not questions with quick answers, but they are good questions. And asking them is part of the healing too. CRISPR invites us to be not only scientists, but stewards. Stewards of a language older than our names. Stewards of the stories told. Stewards of each other's future. And so, as you drift deeper into this story, know that CRISPR is not just a cure. It is a conversation between what is and what could be, between illness and health, between the past written in DNA and the future shaped by choice. Breathe in. Let the air fill your lungs. Somewhere in that breath is a strand of possibility. A world where diseases are not feared, but understood. Where healing comes not with violence, but with grace. Where the blueprint of life is treated like something sacred, even when we revise it. Let that world settle softly in your mind, not as a certainty, but as a promise. A promise that healing, like all good things, begins with attention, with gentleness, with care, and that promise hums now in laboratories, in hospital rooms, in the cells of the hopeful. It hums in you, too, in your body's quiet work of repair, in your heart's soft rhythm, in your mind's longing for peace. Let it hum. Let it carry you, for on the horizon, another question begins to rise. If we can heal, should we also enhance? If we can remove disease, should we add gifts? The light of CRISPR is bright, but it casts long shadows. And in those shadows lives the next part of the story. Sleep now. The promise of healing is here, but in the distance. Something else stirs, not the end of illness, but the beginning of a new kind of choice. Asterisk, asterisk, you breathe in, slowly, quietly. The world is hushed around you. Outside, the stars turn patiently in their skybound orbits. Inside, your body follows a quieter rhythm, one shaped by a balance so delicate it's nearly invisible. Your cells divide in gentle spirals. Enzymes drift and swirl like dancers in a silent symphony, and the instructions that make you remain tucked in long strands, waiting for their moment to speak. This is life's quiet harmony, a balance struck, not once, but again and again, moment by moment, over billions of years. You are not made of parts assembled like clockwork. You are grown, coaxed into being by ancient rhythms that whisper through proteins, through genes, through memory written in the language of molecules. Nature is not perfect, but it is wise. It allows small imperfections. It tolerates mutations. It heals what it can, and it adapts ever so slowly. Like a tree bending to the wind, or a stream carving a canyon, it listens, shifts, and adjusts, not with haste, but with reverence. And now, you are told that we can edit it, change the code, fix the flaws, reshape the story. The idea sounds simple, like replacing a broken gear in a watch. But you are not a watch. You are a living mosaic, a garden of living whispers. And nature, is not just a system. It is a story, a song that sings itself into being. Generation, CRISPR, the tool is real, beautiful, powerful, astonishingly precise, like a scalpel made of light. It allows us to cut the double helix, rewrite the sentences, rephrase the music of life. With it, we dream of a world without suffering, of bodies free from inherited pain, of children born without disease. But even the gentlest touch can disturb the stillness. Even the most careful gardener can damage the root. Even light, when too bright, can scorch the very flower it meant to help bloom. So, we must ask, what happens when we interfere? Not with cruelty, not with carelessness, but even with love and good intent. What happens when we think we understand, and we don't? Picture a spider web in the morning light. Dew gathers on its silken strands, each droplet reflecting the rising sun. One thread pulls slightly, and the entire web trembles. That is how nature works, interconnected, invisible, exquisite. Genes do not act alone. They speak in chorus. The gene we alter may affect another we do not understand. A mutation we introduce may silence one voice, but unintentionally amplify another. What we call a fix may ripple like a stone dropped in still water through the entire pond of biology. We once thought one gene caused one trait, but now we know height is shaped by hundreds of genes, intelligence by thousands. Even something as simple as eye color can depend on a symphony of interactions. To change one note is to retune the entire instrument. To edit one gene is to step onto a stage where the music has been playing for eons. Try to conduct it with human hands. Yes, there are times when the orchestra stumbles. Diseases, mutations, heartbreaks written into DNA. The temptation is strong to silence these dissonant notes, to smooth them away. But we must not mistake complexity for error, nor diversity for defect. Some mutations are harmful, but some are neutral, and some many unknown. We do not yet know the full map of the genome. We only think we do. In nature, every system has its counterbalance. In your blood, there are clotting agents. There are quiet opponents which prevent dangerous clots. In your brain, signals leap across neurons, balanced by signals that calm them down. Too much of either, and something precious falters balance. That is the key, not perfection, not control, balance. And balance, by its very nature, resists extremes. It cannot be forced. It must be understood, respected, and returned to again and again, like tending a fire that cannot be left alone, or sailing a boat that needs constant adjusting. This is where the caution must live, not in fear, but in wisdom. We may see a child born with a rare disorder and wish we could prevent it. CRISPR gives us the power to try, but that power is not yet complete. It is still young. Like a child playing with a seed, not knowing the tree it will grow. Asterisk, asterisk. In 2018, when 2 CRISPR-edited babies were born in China, the world paused. Scientists recoiled, not just at the breach of protocol, but at the unknowns, at the rushing ahead. The change was made in the CCR5 gene receptor tied to HIV infection. The hope was to protect the children from a virus. But CCR5 may also influence brain function, immunity, even vulnerability to other diseases. One cut, one edit, and the cascade of consequences. This is why the balance is fragile. Not because science is bad, but because science, like the genome, is incomplete. It is learning, always learning. Like you, like me, imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, holding a lantern. Beyond you, the landscape is dark. You can see only a few feet ahead. Each step forward reveals more, but the risk is real. Only the echo of your own footsteps and the flickering glow of your light. Now imagine placing a child on that path. A child whose genome you have changed. Not fixed because there is no such thing as a perfect genome, but changed. They will walk forward. Their body will respond to the world. Their cells will grow and divide. And you will not know what comes next. This is not fear. This is honesty. This is humility in the face of mystery. The dream of ending disease is noble, but so is the dream of honoring uncertainty. We do not walk blindly, but we must walk slowly. Even the immune system, so vital, so essential, is a dance of equilibrium. Overactivated, and you get autoimmune disease. Underactivated, and infections thrive. The same logic applies to the genome. We must know not only how to cut, but how to listen, how to wait, how to understand. Pause now. Breathe. Let your body remind you of its own wisdom. Your lungs take in oxygen, not too much, not too little. Your heart beats not because you ask it to, but because life itself wants to continue. Your cells repair their own DNA every second, quietly, tirelessly. Your body is already editing itself, already learning. We are not giving it something new. We are joining an ancient conversation. The microbes that gave birth to CRISPR used it to defend themselves, not dominate. They used it to survive, not to perfect. That is the spirit we must carry. Science should not be a hammer. It should be a tuning fork, a way of sensing what is already there. And so, we ask, again, can we hold this power gently? Can we use CRISPR as a whisper, not a shout? Can we resist the urge to reshape the world before we've truly understood it? In the quiet of a lab, a scientist watches cells divide. On a screen, lines of DNA blink in delicate rows. Somewhere, a parent hopes for a healthy child. Somewhere else, a child wonders where they came from. All of them are part of the same story. The story of nature learning to know itself. Editing a gene is not just a choice. It is a statement about what we value, what we call normal, what we believe deserves to be born. We must be careful that we do not narrow the range of what it means to be human. We must remember that difference is not disorder, that nature's balance includes a wide, wild range of possibilities. Let us be gentle gardeners, not engineers. Let us observe, learn, nurture. Let us remember that some of the most beautiful things in the world are those that were never designed. So rest now, knowing this, the code of life is strong. It has survived ice ages, extinctions, plagues, and chaos. And it continues, not because it is controlled, but because it adapts. Because it holds within it the power to change. and the wisdom to wait. You are part of that balance. You are part of that unfolding. As your breath slows and your thoughts soften, imagine a field under moonlight. Each blade of grass has its place. Each firefly flickers on its own schedule. The balance is not perfect, but it is whole. It is enough, and so we move forward. Not with certainty, but with care. Not with fear, but with reverence. For the genome is not a canvas. It is a garden, and we are only just learning how to tend it. In the next chapter, you will walk into the dream itself, the ancient desire to make better humans, to sculpt strength and intelligence before the first breath. But for now, let this balance cradle you. Let it hum softly as you drift, knowing that nature still holds the memory of all things, and it remembers how to heal, if we let it. Chapter 7. The dream of creating better humans. You are still in the moonlit field. The grass beneath your body is soft, alive, breathing with you. Above, stars blink like ancient eyes, watching, remembering. You lie there, suspended in the quiet balance of Chapter 6, where nature's code whispers of patience and wild wisdom. But now the wind begins to shift, not with alarm, not with fear, but with the restlessness of human dreaming. And so the dream begins, not yours alone, but one whispered through centuries, a dream of shaping the future before it arrives, a dream of creating humans not just as they are, but as they could be, faster, smarter, stronger, more resilient, more beautiful, less prone to suffering, less bound by limitation. In this dream, you are no longer a gardener tending the code of life. You are a sculptor, a careful hand at the edge of a block of marble. You see not what is, but what could be, and with your chisel, you begin to carve. But even here, in the gentlest dream, the air feels different, heavier, woven with hope and unease. The idea is not new. Long before CRISPR, long before the double helix was known, the longing to perfect the human form danced through ancient stories, myths of golden children born of gods, philosophers pondering ideal minds, empires hoping to breed excellence into their citizens, and in darker corners, regimes that tried to control who should be born and who should not. You see, the dream of betterment has always been double-edged. One side glows with possibility, the other cuts deep with judgment. What does it mean to be better? Who decides? In your mind, drift now to a quiet laboratory. Sterile white walls, microscopes, ink-stained notebooks filled with dreams. Here, scientists sit with cells under glass, so silent, yet bursting with potential. They are not monsters. They are not monsters. They are simply curious, careful, and sometimes too bold. They see a gene that might be linked to increased memory, another to higher muscle density, a third that influences resistance to depression, one more that seems to protect against Alzheimer's? Could these be gently edited into a new embryo? Could we offer children a gentler start, less suffering, more strength? And here you pause. Because the dream, once soft, begins to feel slippery. Like trying to sculpt fog, for genes are not simple instructions. They are not switches you turn off or on. They are part of symphonies, networks, interwoven like the notes of a song that only makes sense when played together. One change can ripple through the entire system. You may edit for strength, but what else changes with it? A gene linked to better memory may also increase anxiety. A tweak for muscle growth might affect the heart. The genome is not a menu. It is an ecosystem. Still, the desire remains. And so, we begin to ask, is there such a thing as a responsible dream of enhancement? There are those who argue, yes. They speak of children born free of inherited blindness, of brittle bone disease, of sickle cell anemia. They speak not of better than, but better off, relief from suffering, a gift, not an advantage, but the line is faint. If we can prevent illness, should we? Most say yes. If we can boost intelligence, some say yes, some say no, most say it depends, and that's the heart of the dream. It depends on intention, on outcome, on access, on fairness. Asterisk, asterisk. Imagine now a classroom not today's, but one a few decades ahead. Children sit in a circle. Some were born with edited genomes. Some were not. You can't tell by looking, but behind the scenes, data hums. One child learns languages easily. Another has perfect pitch. A third rarely catches colds. Did nature gift them these traits, or did someone choose? And how does that choice ripple? Do colleges prefer edited students? Do insurance companies check your parents' editing records? Do governments subsidize certain edits or restrict others? Even the gentlest dream, once real, begins to echo with inequality. Back in the field, under the stars. You turn gently toward another thought. What happens to diversity in a world of edited humans? Nature thrives on variation, on imperfection, on unpredictability. When we begin to sculpt the genome, we may unintentionally flatten that variety. Imagine a world where everyone has the same optimal trait stall. Symmetrical, emotionally steady, highly logical. At first, it may sound ideal, but then, what of surprise? What of creativity? What of the wildly unexpected minds and bodies that shift entire worlds? What if Mozart had been edited to be more practical? What if Einstein's learning delays had been corrected away? What if Frida Kahlo had been born free of pain, but also without the fire that lived inside it? This is not to say suffering is necessary, only that humanity is unpredictable, and its beauty lies partly in that unpredictability. Science, too, is learning this. Geneticists now speak more softly about designer babies than they once did. not because science has failed, but because the reality is humbler than the dream. Polygenic traits, things like intelligence, athleticism, even temperament, are influenced by hundreds of genes. And by the environment in which a child grows. Editing one or two genes might change. Very little. Editing dozens. That brings risk, complexity, unknowns. You do not control the symphony by changing one violin string. And yet, the dream remains. Let's visit a real experiment. In the early 2000s, mice were genetically modified to overexpress a protein linked to memory. They performed better in maze tests. They remembered the scary parts too well. In humans, similar experiments are impossible for now. But research continues, quietly, carefully, and sometimes not so carefully. You remember the twins, born in 2018, edited with CRISPR to lack a functioning CCR5 gene, thought to offer resistance to HIV. But this same gene also plays a role in brain development. Some early studies hinted at increased memory performance when the gene is missing. Was this enhancement? Was it an accident? Or was it part of the unspoken dream? And so, we return to you, lying here, breathing gently, wondering. You are not made of perfection. You are made of story, of context, of choices not taken, of genes expressed and silenced in 1,000 tiny ways. Your value does not lie in your efficiency or your memory or your immunity. It lies in your being, your becoming. What happens when we forget that? When we begin to design children like we design phones, each generation, thinner, faster, better. Who gets to choose the definition of better? What traits are preserved? Which ones fade quietly, unnoticed? And what happens when we no longer recognize ourselves in our own descendants? There's another way to dream, not of superiority, but of sovereignty, of each child born with the freedom to unfold. Imagine a world where CRISPR is used not to sculpt better humans, but to equalize opportunity, to prevent pain, yes, but also to preserve freedom, to remove roadblocks, not to dictate a path. A child, freed from a debilitating condition, but still allowed to grow wild in their own direction. A mind not steered toward genius, but supported in its own blooming. This is not about rejecting science. It is about aligning it with reverence. In your hand, you hold a single seed. Inside it is the blueprint for a towering tree. But that seed will grow differently depending on the soil, the water, and the sunlight. Its DNA holds potential, not destiny. So too with humans. We are not machines. We are gardens. We grow in crooked lines. We reach toward unexpected suns. We bend. We bloom. We fail and flourish and fail again. To edit a gene is not to edit a soul, but it does carry consequences and power and weight. So perhaps tonight, the better question is not, can we create better humans, but should we try? And if so, how do we do it with love? The field is quiet again. The wind has softened. In the distance, the stars remain unchanged, though you have changed by looking at them. The dream of enhancement will not disappear, but it can be reshaped into something softer, more honest, less about control, more about care. You close your eyes, not to ignore the question, but to listen more deeply in the next chapter. You will walk with two tiny beings twins, born of this science, this dream, this uncertainty. Their breath is real. Their story is still unfolding. But for now, you rest at the edge of imagination and reality, watching the dream drift into dawn. Asterisk, asterisk, the field is quiet again. The wind has softened. In the distance, the stars remain unchanged. Though you have changed by looking at them, the dream of enhancement will not disappear, but it can be reshaped into something softer, more honest, less about control, more about care. You close your eyes, not to ignore the question, but to listen more deeply. In the next chapter, you will walk with two tiny beings twins, born of this science, this dream, this uncertainty. Their breath is real, their story still unfolding. But for now, you rest at the edge of imagination and reality, watching the dream drift into dawn. And now, the sun begins to rise. In that gentle light, you see them, two small beings wrapped in blankets, soft as cloud. Their chests rise and fall in quiet synchrony. No louder than a whisper, no heavier than a sigh. Their lives begin. Not with thunder, not with ceremony, just with breath. You are standing at the boundary of something profound. Two lives, Lulu and Nana. The names whispered in newsrooms and laboratories around the world. Not chosen by fate, not quite by chance. Chosen by CRISPR. You trace the moment backward, back through the silence of the delivery room, back through the sterile halls of a clinic tucked away in a city in China, back through the flickering screen of an embryo under a microscope, back to a gene folded like a paper crane inside a single cell. It is there where it all began. The gene was called CCR5, a small doorway carved into the surface of a white blood cell, a doorway through which HIV, human immunodeficiency virus, could slip inside. Some people, by the chance of ancestry, carry a rare version of this gene, one where the doorway is sealed shut. They are harder to infect. They carry a kind of invisible key to protection. He Jiankui, the scientist behind this experiment, imagined a future where no child need face the shadow of this virus, a future edited gently at the very beginning, where the burden of illness could be lifted before the first breath. He chose this doorway, this CCR5 gene, as the one to quietly close. But a closed door can mean many things. Safety, yes, but also silence or isolation. And when that door is closed by someone else's hand, what does it mean for the life that lives behind it? The procedure was carried out in secret, like a hush in a crowded room. The fertilized embryos were edited with CRISPR, Cas9, the molecular scissors you've met before. The cut was made, and this, you realize, is the heart of the story. Not the scandal, not the headlines, but the children, the ones who bear the outcome of decisions made before their birth. In them, we see the future, not as prediction, but as reflection. You lie back now, letting your breath settle with theirs. The hum of their world, once hidden, now exposed. A world in which life begins, not just in love, but in code. Not just in the womb, but in the lab. But love is still here, and so is mystery. So is the unknown. You watch as Lulu stretches her tiny fingers in sleep. Nana stirs beside her. They are still at the beginning, and so are we. You wonder, what is the cost of being first? Not in fame, not in disgrace, but in identity, in the fragile formation of self. Will the world treat them as miracles or as warnings? Will they be studied, followed, celebrated, feared, or simply allowed to be? The weight of the future presses gently now, like the hush of snow falling on an open field. You close your eyes again, not to escape the questions, but to hold them. What does it mean to be born into a story already told? What happens when the beginning of your life is also a chapter in someone else's ambition? What happens next? And now you begin to feel the stirring of the next question. It does not arrive with certainty. It floats, a whisper, an echo, because science is not just what we can do, it is who we choose to be. When no one is watching, as your thoughts begin to soften, you hear the breath of the twins beside you, steady and real. Their story is still unfolding, and so is ours. You drift not toward answers, but toward the next space in this journey, the deeper echo that lives in all great discoveries. The ethical heartbeat beneath every experiment. That is where you'll go next, not to find judgment, but to listen to the quiet questions that follow. Every act of creation, too, the moral music that plays after the noise of discovery fades, to the echo that lingers long after the scissors have been put away. Let us walk there. Gently asterisk the ethical echoes you wake again, not with a jolt, but with a hush of a thought brushing softly against your mind. There is no sudden movement here, only the slow stretch of awareness returning like dawn touching the edge of a quiet lake. The story of the twins lingers to small lives, edited before they breathed their first, brought into this world not by chance, but by design. Their existence whispers gently in your thoughts now, not demanding answers, only presence. And with that presence comes a tide of questions too large to grasp, yet too personal to ignore. You lie still and listen, as if the silence might speak. In that silence, there is a kind of music, a hum of responsibility, a ripple of wonder, a note of unease. These are the echoes, not loud, but endless. They rise from the choices we make when we reach into the code of life itself. You can hear them if you listen closely. What is right? What is enough? And who gets to decide? Ethics is not a wall. It is a river. It moves with the times, carving new paths, revealing old stones. The moment we touched the DNA of the unborn, we stepped into this river not with boots and tools, but barefoot, feeling every cold current, every unseen depth. You stand now in that current, sensing both the flow and the resistance. The story of Lulu and Nana begins as a scientific act, but quickly becomes something more human, unfolding of hopes and hesitations, decisions and consequences. Dr. He-Jiang-Kui, the man behind their creation, did not simply use a tool. He crossed a boundary. He touched the germline, the inheritance line, the place where not only bodies, but futures are made. What does it mean to touch the future? He claimed he was protecting the children from HIV, editing the CCR5 gene in hopes that the virus would never find a home in their bodies. But the gesture, though dressed in the language of healing, raised waves of alarm. He did not wait for consensus. He did not build a wide circle of voices. He moved ahead, quietly, and in doing so, he woke the world. There was no medical emergency. Only the possibility of enhancement wrapped in the name of protection. And so, science paused not in celebration, but in silence. Not in awe, but in reflection. Because the question is no longer, can we, but should we? You feel that question now, not in your mind, but in your chest, like a slow breath drawn in and held there, too large to release without care. In the beginning, ethics feels simple. Don't cause harm. Get consent. Tell the truth. But the deeper you go, the softer the lines become. Is it harm to change a gene if it protects a life? Is it wrong to make a choice for someone not yet born? And who speaks for the future child? One whose cells have been rewritten, whose path has been shifted before the first step. You imagine standing beside the twins now, not as a judge, but as a witness. Their eyes open wide to the world, unaware of the debate their lives have sparked. They laugh, they cry, they sleep. They are like all other children, and yet they are not. They carry inside them a decision made in a lab, a choice they did not make, but must live with forever. Some will say they are pioneers. Others will say they are victims. Most will not say anything at all, choosing instead to watch from a distance, unsure of the language to use. Because when science enters the soul of reproduction, when it shifts from healing disease to shaping identity, the conversation grows tender. It becomes less about theories and more about feelings. Imagine explaining to a child that they were edited before birth. That someone looked at their genes and decided what to change. Imagine their questions. Was I not good enough as I was? Did someone rewrite me? What else did they change? Was I loved or just engineered? These questions have no easy answers. Bioethics is the field where these whispers become conversation. It is where philosophers, scientists, parents, and poets sit at the same table and listen to each other, to history, to the voices not yet born. It is a discipline made of bridges, not conclusions. And its purpose is not to stop progress, but to guide it. You sit now in the middle of that conversation, not as an expert, not as a stranger, but as a human, a being made of cells and stories, someone who has inherited the past and will touch the future. In the story of CRISPR, every advance feels like a door, but behind each door is a mirror. When you look into that mirror, what you see is not just the science, but yourself, your hopes, your fears, your deep wish for health, and your deeper fear of losing what it means to be human. There is a term, playing God. It gets used often when science reaches into sacred places. But perhaps the problem is not in the playing. It is in the forgetting. Asterisk, asterisk, forgetting that creation is not just a function, it is wonder. It is vulnerability. It is the right not to be perfect, to be simply ... enough. You imagine now a room filled with scientists. Some are excited. Some are afraid. Some weep, though they do not know why. They have seen what is possible, and in that possibility, they feel the weight of choice. He Zhengqui's experiment was not just a breach of protocol, it was a breach of trust. A reminder that science, unmoored from empathy, can drift into dangerous waters. It's not enough to ask if an edit works. We must ask if it honors the person, if it respects their right to be in all their unedited complexity. The global response was swift. Condemnation from scientists, legal backlash from China, conferences held, guidelines revised, and yet, even with all the noise, something quieter remained: the echo, because ethics is not only about rules, it is about relationship with each other, with nature, with the future. The echo asks not just what happened, but what it meant, what it still means. You picture Lulu and Nana as teenagers. Someday, they may never know what was changed. They may not feel different at all, or they may carry questions, silent as shadows. And we, the ones who watched from afar, must prepare to answer. What do we owe these children? Respect, surely, privacy, protection, but perhaps, most of all, we owe them humility. The humility to say, we tried to help. We did not know enough. We may have been wrong, and we are still learning. This chapter of science is not closed. More scientists are exploring gene editing. Some are cautious. Some are bold. But all must be aware they are no longer just altering cells. They are entering the quiet chambers of identity. You close your eyes again, but not to sleep. You are not ready. Not yet. Instead, you rest in a soft swirl of thoughts. They are not burdens. They are invitations to reflect, to care, to ask better questions. What does healing mean? How do we carry power? Gently, as these questions turn slowly in your mind, you feel the weight of wonder settle again. Like a soft quilt, like a lullaby made of stars and science. There is no ending here. Only a deepening dot. In the next chapter, you will walk with the caretakers. The ones who hold this future in their hands, not alone, but together. The ones who carry the light forward with caution, with kindness. For now, let the echoes continue. They are not haunting. As the night deepens and the echoes of ethics grow quiet, a new kind of stillness takes root. It is not the silence of forgetting, but the hush before tending. Like caretakers in a moonlit nursery, you now stand at the edge of what comes next, where hope is not just imagined, but guided. You are not alone. The path ahead is lit by many small lamps, each carried by a different hand. Scientists walk beside you, their minds brimming with questions and responsibility. Parents tread softly too, their hearts full of love and uncertainty. Lawmakers, ethicists, teachers, children, they all have a place in this quiet procession. Together, you carry something fragile, something full of promise, something unfinished. This is the part of the story where the tools become teachings, where the scalpel of CRISPR turns into a whisper of wisdom. It is no longer only about what we can do, but about what we should do. The line between those two is not a fence, it is a garden path. Sometimes moss-covered, sometimes overgrown, but always walked with care. You pause here in the soft glow of this shared responsibility. Let us walk gently. The first to join you on this path are the scientists, the builders of knowledge. You imagine one now, alone in a quiet lab. Their gloved hands hold a vial of cells, not as a power to be mastered, but as a question to be answered. They do not ask, "How far can I go?" but instead, "Whom does this help? And how do I know for sure?" Science is no longer a sprint toward novelty. It is a meditation. Each gene edited, each embryo touched, is a prayer for a better world, one that remembers to ask before it acts. And so the scientists become guardians, not only of technique, but of humility. Next come the parents. Their hopes are softer, but no less powerful. They are the ones who ask not for perfection, but for peace. They cradle the future in their arms and wonder if the world will be kind, if the changes made before birth will be blessings or burdens, if their children will feel accepted or always watched. You see one such parent now, sitting in a nursery where the light filters through pastel curtains. They touch a small hand and wonder not about genes, but about dreams. Will my child know love? Will they know choice? Will they be free to define themselves, or boxed in by decisions made in a lab? The room is full of lullabies and questions, and then there is society, the great invisible we. The culture that writes stories, passes laws, builds hospitals, and teaches children what matters. It is society that decides which futures are possible and which are not, which differences are cherished and which are erased. You walk through a school now, one that echoes with laughter and questions. Here, a teacher tells a story about DNA, not as possibility. Here, students learn that diversity is not a flaw, but a strength. That editing a gene does not edit the soul. That kindness must always precede progress. This path is long and winding. You walk through courtrooms and classrooms, through newsrooms and nurseries. Each step reminds you that guardianship is not about control, it is about care, not about certainty, but about staying awake. And now you arrive at the edges, the places where decisions are not yet made, where laws are still being written, where international conferences convene and voices rise and waver. Some say halt, others say hurry. Some see salvation, others see hubris. You sit at one such table. The summit is quiet, but the air hums with tension. One delegate stands, then another. They speak of regulation, of equity, of access. They ask, who gets to use this? Who gets left behind? Who profits and who pays? The conversation turns to global fairness, to the fear of genetic tourism, of parents flying across borders to find looser rules, to the risk of a new eugenics wrapped in the soft silk of health and choice. And still, the question returns, who are the guardians? And how do they guard what they cannot fully see? The future cannot be locked in a box, but it can be nurtured. Like a sapling, it bends with each breeze of public opinion, each gust of discovery. And so, the guardians must plant it in good soil, one made of ethics, equality, and empathy. Pause here. You notice now that the guardians are not just others, they are you. In every small choice, in every bedtime story you tell, every policy you read, every quiet thought about what kind of world you want to leave behind. You are the scientist asking, should I? You are the parent wondering, will they be okay? You are the citizen choosing compassion over control. You look back at the twins, those two tiny lives born of edited code. They are not answers. They are questions still breathing. They need a world that is not only prepared for them, but worthy of them. And so you commit to becoming worthy. Asterisk, asterisk, the tools of CRISPR are still sharp. They still shimmer with promise and peril. But in your hands, they soften. They become something slower, something thoughtful, like a poem being rewritten by many hands. And what of the next step? The path does not end here. Not just progress, but reflection. A chapter where the story turns inward again, toward the quiet miracle of your own body. Beauty of life as it is. The rhythms of cells that dance without intervention. The melody of evolution humming on its own. In the next chapter, you will lie still and feel it. The shared breath of all things. The soft ticking of time inside your chest. And maybe, just maybe, you will begin to see not only what can be changed, but what must be protected. For now, stay here. In the gentle care of guardians, in the hush of a future watched over by many. Not with fear, but with love. Chapter 11. A quiet reflection. Our shared journey. You are still lying now. Not sleeping, not dreaming, but listening. Deep inside your chest, the rhythm continues. That quiet thump, thump of life. A whisper in the darkness, older than memory, older than questions, older even than fear. Your breath is soft. In, out, in, out. The air carries no urgency. It carries only the reminder that you are here, alive, participating in something vast and unfolding. Beneath your skin, your cells are still working tirelessly, tenderly. Little engines of life humming in harmony. You don't control them. You don't command them. And yet, they move in time with the orchestra of you. Tonight, you are not just thinking. You are remembering. The journey has been long. A journey through genes and gardens. Through scissors and stars. Through hopes whispered in laboratories and fears held close in hearts. Through two tiny twins, born from science and the wide, uncertain future they stepped into. And through all of it, there was one common thread, the longing to understand who we are and who we might become. Now, in this moment of stillness, you feel the collective weight of that journey, not as a burden, but as a warmth. Like a woven blanket passed from hand to hand, stitched from curiosity, from caution, from care. You are not alone in this. Across the globe, millions of minds have asked these same questions. Scientists poring over sequences, parents holding tiny hands, philosophers pondering ethics, children, perhaps not yet born, whose lives will be shaped by the choices of today. We are all walking this path together, not in perfect step, not always in agreement, but side by side in the soft dusk of wonder. Holding a lantern, each of us, lit with the flame of human thought. Some flames flicker, some burn steady, but all contribute to the glow. You close your eyes and imagine them, the silent assembly of caretakers, guardians, dreamers. One holds a microscope, another holds a child. One writes code, one writes poetry, all of them searching, listening, watching the delicate unfolding of what might be. This chapter is not about action. It is about being, about remembering what it means to belong, not just to a family or a nation or a generation, but to a species, to a planet, to a shared breath. You feel the earth under you now. Not literally, but emotionally. Like the solid certainty of ground, even when your thoughts are adrift. That sense that something holds you, that your place in the world is not a mistake. Think of your DNA, again, not as code, but as conversation. Every gene is not a commandment. It is a suggestion, a possibility. And every possibility carries with it a story. You inherited many stories from ancestors you've never met, from creatures that crawled and swam and climbed long before humans. Your body is their poem, carried forward through time. Asterisk, there is awe in that. There is responsibility, too. When we edit genes, we are not just changing a word. We are rewriting the echoes of 1,000 generations. Sometimes we do so to heal, sometimes to improve, sometimes simply because we can. But this chapter is not here to argue. It is here to hold space for stillness, for a pause, for a moment of quiet reflection between questions, because before we move forward again, before the next leap of science or ethics or dreams, we must remember what we are standing on. You, me, everyone. We are standing on centuries of curiosity, mountains of trial and error, valleys of failure, rivers of persistence. And in this landscape of human progress, we must remember to walk gently. Not everything that can be changed must be changed. Not every imperfection is a flaw. Not every unknown is a threat. The children of tomorrow, those who will live in a world shaped by gene editing, by CRISPR and beyond, deserve a map that includes not just technology, but tenderness. That map begins with how we reflect. You shift slightly, noticing the weight of your own body against the mattress or the floor beneath you. There's something grounding in that reminder that you are not just thoughts. You are cells and silence and skin. Somewhere in your body, CRISPR might one day be used to cure, to restore, to prevent, or perhaps not. Perhaps your body, just as it is, will continue to carry the ancient rhythms forward. You do not need to decide tonight. This chapter is not about decisions. It is about connection. Imagine for a moment the inside of a single cell, its walls gentle and porous, its contents a shimmer of molecules dancing. Mitochondria hum. Ribosomes click softly like typewriters. The nucleus rests like a moon, quiet and luminous. Now zoom out. Thousands of cells, millions, a whole body. A person. Now zoom out further. A family, a community, a society. All sharing the same basic script with only small variations, and within that script, a story that stretches beyond biology. A story of dreaming, because to be human is to imagine more. We imagine cures. We imagine futures. We imagine better versions of ourselves, not to erase who we are, but to unfold what we might become. You think back to the twins, born with edited genes. A step into the unknown. Their story is still unfolding, yes, but it is also our story, because their breath is not separate from yours. Their lives are woven into the same tapestry, the same future. You wonder, what will they carry forward? Not just in their genes, but in their understanding. Will they feel chosen? Will they feel safe? Will they feel free? We cannot know, but we can choose how we reflect on the questions they raise, and how we respond, not just with regulation or technology, but with empathy, with a willingness to ask what kind of world we want to co-create. A world where difference is embraced, not erased. A world where healing is a gift, not a demand. A world where we listen more than we fix. You open your eyes for a moment and imagine the sky, not the one filled with stars, but the one filled with people, millions of lives, each blinking like a light, each deserving the same dignity, the same wonder, the same chance to be heard. This chapter is about listening to your body, to your others, to the future. It does not ask you to solve anything, only to stay present, to remember that science is not separate from story, that every hypothesis begins with a dream, and every dream begins with a quiet courage to wonder, what if? You are part of that wonder now, not just as a reader or a thinker, but as a witness to the great unfolding, asterisk, asterisk, from the earliest bacteria who defended themselves with snippets of viral code, to the scientists who watched and learned and named those snippets CRISPR, to the children born from the dreams those scientists dared to follow. To you, you are not outside this story. You are within it, living it, shaping it, sharing it. There is nothing more human than that. So rest now. Let your body continue its quiet miracle. Let your breath remain soft. Let the questions hum gently in the back of your mind, like a lullaby with no final verse. You don't need all the answers. Sometimes the most powerful thing is to pause and remember what binds us, not genes, not technology, but the tender willingness to care deeply, to reflect honestly, to hope quietly, and to walk forward, not alone, but together. Even if the path ahead is still forming beneath our feet, even if we do not yet know where it ends, the rhythm continues in you, in me, in all of us, a shared journey, a quiet reflection, and somewhere just beyond the edge of now. The next chapter waits soft as starlight, slow as breath. You feel it approaching, not as an answer, but as an invitation. Asterisk, asterisk, let yourself lie still. Let the weight of the day soften, like snow melting into a river. Let your breath ease into rhythm, like the tide pulling gently against the shore. You are not alone, here, not in this stillness, not in this wonder. You are a part of something wider, quieter, older than memory. Close your eyes and feel it, the hush the great silence that cradled the stars before they ever learned to burn. The universe, too, sleeps. Not the kind of sleep that forgets, but the kind that remembers. A slow, dreaming slumber in which galaxies turn like lullabies, sung in a language of light. In this sleep, everything continues, stars drift, atoms hum, and the soft breath of time moves forward, patient and unhurried. You are part of that breath. You are made from the same particles that once lived in suns, wandered through comets, and settled in oceans. Your body carries echoes of ancient tides and lost winds. Your cells to rest, not in idleness, but in balance. A sleep that renews, reorders, reweaves the threads of being. Even your genes, those quiet scribes of existence, pause now. They are not always in motion. Some wait in silence, like seeds buried beneath winter soil, holding stories not yet ready to bloom. You, too, hold stories. Stories of questions asked and unanswered, of choices made with trembling hands, of science that offered possibility and love that asked whether it should be used. All those stories swirl inside you like dust caught in sunlight, weightless, drifting, real dot, and here, in the stillness, you are allowed to let them settle. Let the echoes of the twins rest for now, their breath steady, their lives unwinding in gentle spirals. Let the caretakers watch over them. Let the debates soften. Let the ethics sleep, not from neglect, but from a trust in the growing wisdom of many voices, learning to listen. There is no hurry here. You are in a space between the asking and the answering, between the wonder and the understanding, between what has been shaped and what still waits. Even the universe, vast as it is, moves in cycles, explosions followed by cooling, formation followed by silence. It dreams in centuries, in epochs, in cosmic hush. Black holes hum in quiet gravitational songs, and somewhere in that infinite silence, a child breathes, one of the twins. Perhaps she dreams, too, not of equations or ethics, but of something soft light through leaves. The smell of warm skin, the taste of rain. She does not yet know that she is history, that her body is the first stanza in a poem, written by science and hope and hesitation. She only knows that she is here, and that is enough. Her cells divide gently. Her genes unfurl like scrolls in candlelight. Inside her, the story of editing is not an experiment, it is simply life, no longer a first or a controversy, just a body breathing, just a child laughing. The world outside her holds the storm, the questions, the fear, the fierce protectiveness, and the cautious optimism. But in her small room, the universe rests again, curled like a question mark beside her crib. What do we do now? We watch, we care, we learn, not just about CRISPR or cells or DNA, but about ourselves. about what it means to touch the thread of life with intention, about how to shape gently and how to step back, about how to build futures that are both strong and soft. And as you drift deeper into the folds of this night, you begin to feel it. The shift. The story was never just about the twins. It was never just about science. It was always about us. Our curiosity, our courage, our flaws, our dreams. It was about the way we sit at the edge of the unknown and ask, can we? And then, with a deeper breath, should we? And then, when no answer comes easily, we ask, how can we love? Through this, because that is the root of it all. Not power, not perfection, but care. To care so much that you stop and wonder. To care so deeply that you tread lightly. Even when the path is bright and promising. To care enough to protect not just from harm, but from arrogance. And now, as the universe lies in its quiet sleep, you feel that same care rising in you like warmth. You remember the scientist who stayed up nights, not to chase glory, but to double-check, to question, to whisper their worries into journals and dimly lit labs. You remember the parents who hesitated, not out of love. You remember the voices that shouted and the ones that trembled, all part of the same human chorus, trying to say, let us do this right, let us move slowly, let us remain kind, and now, finally, let us rest. Even your thoughts begin to soften, not because they are finished, but because they are safe, because they are no longer alone, somewhere in another part of the world. A team of researchers finishes a long day, takes off gloves, closes laptops. Someone stands outside a hospital room, hand pressed to glass, watching a baby sleep. The questions they will someday ask. This is how the future arrives, not in leaps, but in footsteps, not in certainty, but in curiosity wrapped in care. Even the sky, when it turns to night, does not snap into darkness. It fades, gently, like you are now. Your breath matches the rhythm of stars you cannot see. Your heart hums with the slow, ancient code of life, older than books, older than fire. You are not just watching this story. You are part of it. Every kindness you choose, every question you carry gently, every moment of wonder you do not rush to resolve. These are the edits you make not in DNA, but in the shared story of what it means to be human. That is your legacy. 2.2 Be a guardian, not just of genes, but of gentleness, to stand at the edge of incredible power and still whisper, wait, let's listen first. Let's imagine not only what we can become, but who we truly want to be. And so you sleep not with answers, but with something softer, with a warmth of knowing the story continues, with a peace of having paused long enough to feel its shape, with a comfort of knowing you are not alone. In holding it, even the universe, immense and ancient, holds you now. The stars Above you, flicker not like spotlights, but like lullabies. They do not demand attention, they invite it. They invite you to slow down, to dream not of conquest, but of care, not of control, but of communion. Your body rests. But your curiosity does not vanish. It folds its arms beneath its head and lies beside you, waiting, wondering, breathing with you. And in that shared breath, you sense something sacred. Not sacred in the way of rules or temples, but sacred in the way the ocean is sacred to a thirsty shore. In the way a whisper is sacred when spoken at the right time. In the way this science, this story, this journey has become sacred because it was met with care. Sleep. Now sleep in the cradle of everything you are and everything we're learning to become. Let the questions drift like stardust. Let the universe hum around you, quiet, watchful, dreaming. You are not lost in the dark. You are part of the dark. And the dark, too, is beautiful. Close your eyes. Let the rhythm of your breath become part of the larger rhythm, the one that pulses through stars and cells alike. Let the story rest inside you. It will be there in the morning, and so will you. Ready again to wonder, ready again to care, asterisk, asterisk. And now, dear listener, our journey comes to a gentle pause. The questions have settled for the night. The stars remain steady and quiet above you, and the rhythm of your breath, curious, calm, connected, continues, just as it always has. You've traveled far, through whispers of genes and the dreams of possibility, through the breath of tiny twins and the hush of a waiting future. Together, we've wondered not just what science can do, but what it means to hold the story of life in our hands. There will be more stories, more echoes in the dark, more light at the edge of the unknown. But for now, rest in the soft truth we've found, that care, reflection, and love must always guide the path ahead. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more. Until then, good night. And don't forget to subscribe.